morning I'm joined by Schnitzler, who is a master restoration carpenter, who often does projects with other folks. Where we are this morning is volunteer help. John has worked on almost dozens of historic houses at Strawbery Banke, as well as many other historic houses museums and historic houses in the community. John also is the recipient of the Gerrier Memorial Award from the Preservation Alliance. John Schnitzler, welcome.
Thanks for looking for us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tobias warehouse. Right off the bat, I'm going to start off with the family history a little bit. There was 5 Tobiases here. The first one was from the 1600s, who had nothing to do with the site. And then the second one, Tobias II, bought the land. And Tobias III built the first house, which still exists here. Tobias IV expanded the first house, and then Tobias VI possibly put on the back alley that no longer exists either, for his mother when the place was subdivided. So that's the family history. As far as the house goes, what we're looking at is the Tobias IV expansion. It became a 4/4 house with a new hip roof. The first house from Tobias III period was about 1738, and that was only a 2/2 room house, one room deep, and it had a gable roof on the end of it with a central chimney. The expansion really altered the whole building. But it's surprising that there was so much still early fabric that's still intact that's been discovered. It's a very interesting story. What we're doing here is preserving the building. We're not trying to recreate anything. It's under preservation easement by New England, Historic New England, and they guide us as to our approach. So it's basically repair if it's damage beyond keeping it or fixing it, but not to change it. So it's all in-kind repair. And that explains why you see so many different elements in kind here. Like we have 4 back bands on our windows. The original ones from the second house period, the 1760s, are intact, but then we go with some federal ones and some good revival ones too. So people have been fixing the house and altering it through the years. What I'd like to do is start going through how the first house looked and what modifications were done to it in the second building stage. I'll show you my book. Here's our first earliest image of our building, and this is a Sarah Foster painting. This is our missing back L, which is probably the 3rd generation, maybe Tobias V's involvement. So we can see this is how the house looks today. This is the earliest photo of the house, and it still is exactly how it looks today. This is probably about 1890, the photo. The power is not here yet. The windows are probably the originals that haven't been changed out yet. And that would be to the second period. So let me clarify that. I'm going to refer to the first house as the 1730s house, and then the second period would be the house as we see it today. This is a later picture, about 1900, and the windows have been already altered, along with the front door itself. The house basic structure is still there. So here's the floor plan, and this is what we schemed up as to how this place evolved. First house, 1 room deep, 2 rooms, over 2. And then this is the Lear the 4th edition, how he just added a whole another back of the same dimension and came out with 2 more rooms down and top, upstairs, downstairs. But there's one interesting feature that this place had, and it still shows it. It had a 1-story kitchen L off the back, and that was really intriguing because when they built the second house, they just went up and over it. They cut the roof rafters off and just built up and over it, married new poles next to the old house frame, and then just did their thing. The first house, they took the roof completely off, and they did our hip as we see it today. The central chimney, they took it down. They reused the bricks and built these two new chimneys, along with a lot of reused material from the first house. They re-altered mantles and other things. We'll see that the next time. So that's the floor plan. On our south wall, one of the first discoveries we made, because this west was where we started, and then we went southeast. We've located a door in this window, and there was speculation that this room possibly was a shop, and you can see that when we get inside the next time again, why we were thinking that. But this opening here is real. The sheathing's correct, the studs are properly placed, and the reason this is open because all this area was poorly built and some of this was all rotting out, so we had to remove it. That was our reason to be there. But this was our discovery. There's one thing that's really neat with this building, and it's a technological change. The first house is strictly ribbon lath, and the second house is strictly split board lath. And by following the two laths, it gives you a really good idea of who's doing this when. And as you can see in this door picture, that's all split board lath. On the two sides, it's ribbon lath. So it's been clearly always a door. But it became more than a door. It also became a bump out L in the front. This photo doesn't show it very well, but this one does. This is the mortises in the horizontal girt where the ceiling beams would have tied in, and there was one at the hallway post, two in the girt, probably more over this way. I had no reason to come and confirm that because that area was in great shape, no damage, no need for me to touch it, so I didn't. But the areas that were exposed are all places where we had to fix things. This is that window, and the window header was leaking and poorly damaged, and that's when this was discovered. I did not go up to find the roof line, but it must be up there somewhere. There was no reason for me to remove anything to see it, and we don't go digging unless we have a reason to be there. So that was a very interesting thing. So we have a one-story little bump out here that supplements possibly this shop. So we're moving along. The front door surround. That's not Georgia. It's federal. So it's from another time period. We feel that the Tobias V L, when the house was subdivided for his mother and his sister to live in, was probably built at that time because there's several things that show up. So I think that when she took over, maybe late 1780s on up to 1790s, somebody did some new work, and the door surround's one of them. But under the frieze of that pediment is the first door frame. Why it didn't get ripped out, I don't know. But what they simply did was cut it off and then put the frieze over everything and just left it there. They put in the new door frame and then the new pediment and all that right up and over it. But what the neat thing about it was it had some very peculiar, interesting feature on it, and it had a rabbit on the outside. So it's like, transoms are usually rabbited from the inside. Why is this on the outside? Well, we'll get there in a minute. The other thing we kept looking for is we knew there were different windows here. All our windows, well, there's a few exceptions. Most of our windows are all the second period 1760s house frames. We knew there had to be first period house windows here somewhere, and we needed to try to locate them. Well, we started getting snippets of where they were, and this is one example. This sheathing is first house. It's cut to the new window, their window. They were shorter. This window's been cut down into the sheathing, so they were shorter in height, but they are also wider. What we're looking at here is infill. So when they took out the first windows, they brought in their 9/6 late windows and installed them in the same opening. But it keeps getting better. Because we're starting to find it in all of this half of the windows. There's another one. This is an infill piece. So the window actually came to this sheathing. You can see it's almost like 2 or 3 inches higher up. Just another example of it closer. So this is the second period 18th century window that's in repair stage. This stuff was rotted out, the sills were all fallen out. But this is where that original window would have sat. So the windows were showing us their locations, but they weren't really explaining what was here. But one window turned out to be a really cool story. And it's the southeast second floor window. That one, remnants of the first period window survived in the wall, in place. They never removed it. And this is the frame right there. That's the left side, and then you can barely see the right side. It's been whacked apart a little with chisels to make the new window frame fit. But you can see the height difference, how they've lowered the windows and all of that stuff. But this window is great, because this window shows some really good information. In this close-up, what we're looking at is the original frame, the tail of the original frame, which is nailed from the inside out and clenched. These windows are not attached to the sill. The sill is about 4 inches away. So it's only attached onto the sheathing in different areas. So this is the sill line. It's mortise and tenon sill line. It has a rabbet on the outside. Remember I said that once before. And it goes up. I'm having struggles here. There it is. There's supposed to be 2 of them here. There we go. It goes up to a middle bar. Mortise and tenon, peg, right through the middle of the window. It's like, what is that doing there? These later windows aren't built that way. What is this? And then this. Doesn't look like much, but it's not a nail. It's a pintle. The barrel of the pintle is broken off. They tried to pull it out. They couldn't, so they flipped it over and just pounded it in. So this suggests an casement window swinging out. And then when you get into the upper section, the little rabbet stops. And we run up to the header, which is also mortise and tenon, just like the ones below. So what's happened is this face has been clipped back. It's lost some depth. And they did that so that their new frame would have a casing that could ride over it, butt up to the clapboards, and be finished off like in the normal fashion. Well, truly not normal. There's another story there. But so they've knocked some of this back. So it turns out when you add all that up, that little missing rabbet probably was there, just like on the transom. It probably was this. Bizarre, but quite believable. And there's that pintle. There's our middle rail. There's a sill form, header form, a fixed window in a little transom fixed window in a little rabbet. A bigger rabbet for the window to swing open. This is a house in Gloucester. Not Hillary house. So we have something of this nature. As far as that transom goes, you probably have this fixed inside that little rabbet that's up there.
This is existing in Gloucester?
This is existing. Now this is a reproduction. But Bill Finch figured this out from his discoveries with down there. And this is what they came up with a solution.
Are you going to reproduce this here?
No, because our windows exist. We're staying in time. We're not recreating. And besides, if we were to put this window in here, what do we do at the back of the house? Cut it off? Because it would be out of context. So no, this is just a suggestion. Now, this is something that helps. We find other little examples of stories with this stuff. These little diamonds, which are like that, for placement, is found in the attic. Well, this is, diamond leaded window glass. Why is it up in the attic? Well, somebody could have salvaged it and stored it up there. But the story where we found these was, one of them, this one, the good one, was inside a rafter pocket that had been ripped out of the first roof. It was laying in there. So the suspicion is maybe these are gable windows. When they were tearing off the roof and the upper structure, these things were kicked around. The glass got busted, it got loose, it fell into a pocket, they didn't clean up. And then second thing is when they boarded the attic in the second period, it's a double board. It was virgin. It had been, nobody had ever opened it up. There was no way for this stuff to fall into the attic flooring. Maybe a rat dragged it in. But it's getting more plausible. We do have requests from our archaeologists who have done a lot of digging here for any information on this stuff if they found anything. So they're searching their shards to see what might have. We never found lead, the cane, so. But that's the window. If you'd like to, we'll walk to the east side. Okay. And we'll go to that area.
Just a note to our viewers, we are obviously outside on the street in the south end, which can be a pretty busy place. So I hope that there's not too many distractions going on for you.
Yeah, and then great. So here is the two windows, well, the one window we've been talking about. It's the second floor one there. So those window frames of the first house is still there. That window, the discovery is made because that window, the sills were falling out, the sheathing underneath it was rotted out, and the casings were really in rough shape. I wanted to consolidate at the end. So when I popped out the sheathing and the sill, that's when the view came of that other frame up there. And it's like, ooh, this is really good. And taking off the casings, and then that's where the discovery is made. But we knew something was wrong with this house from the very beginning, before anybody touched anything. And one of the reasons is, look at the alignment of these windows. They don't line up. And on the front of the house, it's the same business. What they were doing was putting in their second window as best as they could get it in to that existing space with the minimal amount of destruction to do it. And the offset didn't bother them. They just did it. So it's kind of nutty. The other thing about it that's really crazy is these second windows, the normal Portsmouth treatment is the window frame with casing goes onto the stud, the back band goes onto the casing back a little way so that the clapboard can go onto the casing. So the edge of the casing is catching that tail of the clapboard. But here it's not that way at all. These frames are just mounted direct to the sheathing. They're nailed in kind of so-so, and that's it. There's no waterproofing from that casing or anything. It's just all one line right to the back of the sheathing. It's very strange. I've never seen it. But it was probably all because of the adaptation of the space that they were working with. So over here, this is the end of the old house. First house is there, and the second house starts here. So when they worked onto the new addition, they got a new frame, and they just leaned it up against the old frame, and we have two 8x8 posts right here. And that occurs in several places where they're framing up against the old frame. Now here's another a really interesting story. This one is the kitchen. And the kitchen is two windows, as you can see. But only one of them second period. There's a second house, and that's the one on the right. That is the 18th century frame. It had a lot of problems, and the frame is there, but the casings had to be replaced. They were really gone, and the sill on that one is. But the window to the left is not 18th century. It's about 1830, 40, something like that. It's all cut nails. It's all different size. It's shorter. You can see it claps right over it. Differently, it's not as big. It's got a greased-in overload on it. It's not federal or 18th century, anything like that. So it's a whole other period. So it started us off with a real controversy because there's this picture that was in Howell's Architectural Heritage book that shows a picture window here and not these two things. So it's like, well, how did that occur? Well, we'll have to find it. And the day I was doing this, I had Dr. Candy with me, and we both were scratching our head. It's like, where's this picture window? This is an original stud, what's left of it. You can see all the rod in it. But the window casings are nailed properly with rosehead nails. All the splitboard laths, I've talked to you about splitboard laths, is all properly nailed. What we're looking at here is the back of the hutch. That's all the way it was supposed to be. The sheathing's all correct. The sheathing on the left side of the window is correct with proper nails and type of wood. And when it runs to this window, it's been cut out, obviously. This stud is the match to this one, and since it was in the way, they lopped it off, moved it over, put in the new window. There is no picture window. Good old Bill Fish. He stared at this and he goes, that picture's been doctored. He goes, that ain't right. Somebody's done something to this image, and for some reason, wanted to show a picture window, what it might look like, or what. Something's going on. But it's clearly, from the evidence, the physical evidence of the house, this has never occurred here. So that's pretty neat. It drove us crazy at first because there's a picture window here. Where is this? How did you do that? Didn't do that. Okay, let's just run to the back. So another issue we had going here was the scullery. There was a small scullery in the back of the house, and it had been rebuilt with all kinds of reused materials. It had some modern framing in it. It wasn't a complete story to the L as if it was real or not. It sure did appear to be real, but rebuilt completely. Well, it turns out it is real. What was there was a real scullery off the back, and it serviced the kitchen, which is normal. And how it came to that conclusion is, it's a bad picture, but there's a big mortise in there, just like the one we saw in the shop front. And the sheathing's notched to get around that beam, and that's the tie girt that comes from the left corner to catch this wall. There's another one on this side we're going to see in a minute. And the ceiling, the roof rafters on our scullery that we had, it came to this point. And you can see how the whitewash has been continuing. But when we took it down, and Historic New England gave us permission to, because they agreed the thing was gone. When we took it down and cleaned up this clapboard line so we could get this removed and get the new one built, we discovered that the roof was indeed totally replaced and lowered. The whitewash continued all the way up to this point. So we had a steeper stud roof. So looking at all this whitewash sheathing board, which is exterior sheathing, stared at it for hours. There's no clapboard. The door casing that comes into this scullery, there's no paint lines for clapboards or anything. It's always been whitewashed, and it's always been an unheated scullery space. It's been rebuilt, but it really existed. And it was on a lousy foundation. It only went in the ground about a foot. A couple of, rocks holding it up, and no depth to it. And there we go. Here's the other side of that scullery. And here is the second tiger post that's now missing. The tenon's there, but the sheathing's not to go around it. And that would have been our outer wall for that. And you see the whitewash still rides up all the way up to where the opening is today. And that's great. But the really cool story, not this. This is fantastic. This is the one-story kitchenette in the back of the first house. What we're looking at is a flared corner post, a plate tying to it, tie girt, and then somebody filled in this little block when they added all of this second house to it. And this line is that rafter line. That pin is the rafter mortise. This pin goes to him, and it's all there. And look how they cut the sheeting. This is the first sheeting. This is the second sheeting. They notched it, made a joint, and it all back wall. That whole back wall is there from the first house still. Very interesting. This post, his mate, is sitting on the other side of that window right there. He's still intact. And he was the thing that gave us the first thought, because when we first looked at this, Jim Garvin came through, and I said, Richard Candy, of course, and Richard Nyland is here. He's our consultant for wallpaper, and many others. Bill Finch, of course. And that thing was really bugging us, is why is he here? He's not in context correctly for the new addition. And it's all because of the one-story owl still exists. The door is still the right back door location. We have second period pediment and features, but the first door was also there. And I suspect one of our last little discoveries to be made, I think, if you look to the left of the pediment, there's a little teeny notch in the sheathing. I think that's probably a first transom to the back door, shooting across to the right-hand side, which you can't see yet. I would love to just pop that one clap up to see if that continues that cut. And if it is, it's no doubt what I'm saying is another transom.
You going to?
Well, it depends. If I think I got to fix the flashing, and that'll give me the opportunity to do that. I don't know how bad the triangle pediment is in condition-wise. I know the corner on the left side's not good, so I have to repair it. But if I can do it in place, okay. If I can't, then I get a chance. So stay tuned.
So
this is beautiful. We're going to go inside and see that.
So just so I understand what you're saying,
Yep.
When this was a 2-over-2 house before the expansion into a 4-over-4 center hall,
Yep.
that there was a one-story
Kitchenelle.
kitchenelle that was centered on the back as opposed to
Right.
being on the left or right side, which is more typical in Portsmouth.
It's a central L. So that argument came up, central L's are not that common. Well, turns out there's 3 of them at Strawbery Banke. Oracle House is one. Little Jackson is one that was planned but never built. And Riderwood. So we have 3 examples over there.
And those are all 2-over-2.
And they're all, one-story little central L. So what it does, it preserves the left and the right window from that one-room deep house. You're not interfering, losing light.
Very cool.
It is very cool. What else have we got? We'll see for the next page. Sorry.
Oh.
So that's our exterior tour. I know I should have mentioned the central hall, how the conversion of the house, the complete conversion of it was. And when they took that central chimney down, they took out the 3-run staircase that was first, and then built the front to back full-size central hall. But it's amazing how many parts and pieces are reused from the first house here. And our next talk you'll be seeing a lot of that. They kept everything. They just used everything. The window, the first period window, I actually found a piece of a frame used as a shim on one of these west windows along the stud to fill out whatever they were doing. And it was out of context, of course. It was turned sideways. But I could see the mortises. And I had no idea what I was looking at. I could not place it. I couldn't find a home for it. It's still in the wall, of course. But it made no sense to me. But then when we found the real McCoy, yay!
Fantastic.
Okay.
Did you want to bring them in just to
Well,
see
I'd
that
like
one
to show
piece?
you the one thing, yeah, because it is technically part of the experiment. This is a good pointer. So, this is second house post. Goes from the sill all the way up to the new plate. This is the first house kitchen, one-story corner post. There's a high, and then they've added another post to sit on top. And I'm not too sure why they would do that, because you kept this one running all the way. You almost need this other cylinder, but they did. But this season, the first house, they've lapped it so they can bring this to it. Yeah, it's just really very interesting. I would love to know where the roof line goes, if there's any information up there on the ceiling about that angle or how that works. Did they replace all the gable end of the ceiling up there? They might have, because it would have had the line of the rafter, and that's not always the greatest, but then they could have saved it too. I don't know. There's some little things that we could find. So I have no reason to get up into it, and I guess I'll never know.
Excellent. Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm your videographer, Peter Michaud. I'm on the board of the Piscataqua Decorative Arts Society. Because of time constraints, we are only doing the exterior today. We are going to do this again with the interior. There are lessons that have been learned that we will hopefully solve so that we'll have an even better production for you next time. Keep in tune on our page, like our page. You can sign up for our distribution list, and hopefully we will see you when we come back in a couple weeks to look at the interior of the Tobias Lear house. Thank you for coming, and we'll hopefully see you soon.